I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin', my homies? Hope you're doing well, feeling blessed, having a good day, having a good week. This one's going to be the rematch. Alex Pereira taking on Yuri Prochazka. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait. Let's go. Now guys, as always, we're going to recap my bets from last week. And the bets, they weren't great. They were kind of dusty. As you can see with my lineup, Johnny Walker, I spoke about his chin. I spoke about the dusty chin, but that's the only problem, really, in the game of Johnny Walker. It was the downfall against Volkan Ozdemir. No time. He got it done. No time. Then you can see I put too much stock in the game of Pavlovich. You know, the jab of Volkov, the teep kick. It was money all night, so credit to Volkov. And also big credit to Robert Whittaker. What he done to Aliskerov. Just so cold. Round one, okay. I kinda expected, you know, if the matchup ends round one, it's Aliskerov. It's not Robert Whittaker. Oh yes it is. And then you can see on my lineup, I had Nasrat, which, you know, that fight was so close. And credit to Gordon. The guy boxed. He was going toe for toe, boxing with Nasrat. Then I had main event doesn't go the distance, which was my parlay with Nasrat, and that's my only win. So guys, we're going to visit MoneyCity on the MoneyCity Champions, and after we do that, try to get back to winning ways. Try to get back to the profit. So guys, if you see your name on the screen, you already know, that's money. Let's do it again. Let's go. Moving into the first matchup of the card, we've got Ricky Simón taking on Vinicius Oliveira. And guys, Vinicius Oliveira, what he done in his UFC debut, that knockout stoppage, it was disgusting. Let's be honest, that knockout stoppage in the final seconds of the final round, just disgusting. You look at the overall performance for Vinicius Oliveira, it wasn't that good, to be honest. You know, you look at Bernardo Sopai, he was able to exploit the wrestling, exploit the grappling of Vinicius Oliveira. So for Vinicius Oliveira to beat Ricky Simón, staying off the mat, you know, showing some defensive wrestling, showing your ability to get back to the feet and not being glued to the fence, not being glued to the mat. That's how you beat Ricky Simón, right? Because Ricky Simón his chin's dusty. You can KO Ricky Simón, but you're not going to find a KO stoppage if you're on the mat, if you're being wrestled, right? And Ricky Simón has kind of made a career out of doing that. You know what I'm saying? He's a good wrestler, man, a beast of a wrestler. I would kind of say that Ricky Simón is like an American version of Merab. It's the same kind of thing. And guys, Merab Dvalishvili is very reckless. You know what I'm saying? You can find his chin. And you can do the same thing against Ricky Simón. Because Ricky Simón is so aggressive on the feet. You know, always marching forward. Always looking to fight at a higher pace. You can find his chin. So if you're Vinicius Oliveira, yes, your wrestling's not that good. Your grappling's not that good. We see that against Bernardo Sopai. You know, you're beaten in that area of the fight. But what Vinicius Oliveira showed us is, look, at some point in the fight, I'm going to find his chin. And when I do, it's lights out. It's game over. It's dusted city. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to see that against Ricky Simón. Does Ricky Simón get Vinicius Oliveira to the mat and impose his will with the grappling? Or at some point, is he going to go to sleep? Guys, for me personally, I'm going to side with Ricky Simón to get Vinicius Oliveira to the mat, rinse and repeat with the wrestling. That's what seems most likely to me. Like I said, Vinicius Oliveira in his UFC debut, the wrestling wasn't good. The defensive wrestling, you know, being held on the mat, glued on the mat. Yes, the knockout in the final round, the final seconds, it was cold. It was really cold. But is that going to happen again? Is he going to find the chin of Ricky Simón? Or is Ricky Simón going to impose his will with the wrestling? But guys, I'm going to side with Ricky Simón to win the matchup. I just think his wrestling may be too good for Vinicius Oliveira. Now, moving into a matchup between Carlos Hernandez taking on Ray Tsuruya. And guys, Ray Tsuruya, this guy might be a prospect. He really might. His grappling, his ability to get the opponent to the mat and to dominate on the mat, that's really where I'm seeing Ray Tsuruya as a prospect. You know, that's where I'm seeing his ability shining. You know what I'm saying? Carlos Hernandez, this guy's been in the UFC. He's had a few fights, but I've never really been too impressed with Carlos Hernandez. Don't get me wrong. He'll circle the octagon. He'll use some nice boxing combinations. He'll try to grapple at times if he's made to grapple, but he's just not that good. You know, you see it against Alan Nascimento. Alan Nascimento wrapped him up. He wrapped him up like he was rolling up a blunt. You know what I'm saying? With Ray Tsuruya, he might do the same thing. He might get him to the mat, take the back, and then just say, look, the fight's done. Blunt's rolled. Then you're seeing recently with Tsuruya, he didn't even need to rely on the jiu-jitsu. He didn't even need to rely on the grappling to beat Carlos Hernandez. He just dusted him on the feet. Now, Ray Tsuruya is also a Japanese prospect, just like Tsuruya, but if you're Ray Tsuruya, you want to get Carlos Hernandez to the mat, you know, wrap him up, get the fight done, and let everyone know, look, I'm here. I'm a prospect. And Carlos Hernandez does have more experience than Ray Tsuruya, but can he stay on the feet? You know, can he stop Ray Tsuruya from taking the back, imposing his grappling, imposing his jiu-jitsu? And that's going to be the real challenge for Carlos Hernandez. You know, can I stay on the feet? Can I stay boxing with Ray Tsuruya? If Ray Tsuruya can get Carlos Hernandez to the mat, take the back, then it might be fight done, game over. But for me personally, guys, I'm going to side with Ray Tsuruya. Now, guys, moving into a matchup between Andrei Arlovski taking on Martin Buday, and here's the thing. Andrei Arlovski is very old. He's extremely old. He's like a dinosaur, right? He's been around for a long time. Now, because Andrei Arlovski is very old and he's past his prime and he still wants to fight, Andrei Arlovski's had to adapt. He's had to evolve as he's gotten very old, right? And what you're seeing in the game of Andrei Arlovski is basically he doesn't fight. He just runs away. He circles the octagon, calf kick, circle the octagon, calf kick, 1, 2, 1, back to circling the octagon. He just does that, right? He's not really allowing for the opponent to find his chin because he knows his chin's dust. He knows if the opponent can find his chin, then it's game over. So that's kind of the dangerous thing about betting Andrei Arlovski. We know that he doesn't really want to fight. He wants to get paid, right? He wants to show up and get paid. But to win the matchup, he just kind of circles the octagon and just doesn't really engage too much with the opponent. Now, Martin Buday, when you throw punches at Martin Buday, he just shells up. He just literally shells up. He covers up, which is very passive, you know, very, very passive. If you feint the opponent and the opponent starts shelling up, starts covering up, and you're just feinting, you can see that reaction. And you start to think, okay, this guy doesn't want to get hit. And guys, fighting is 90% mental. You know what I'm saying? So if you're shelling up, if you're covering up before the opponent's even throwing their punches, you're kind of showing the opponent your mentality. You're kind of showing them, I don't want to get hit. Now, some people might say, yeah, but in a fight, you want to show good defense. You don't want to get hit. That's true. But you want to slip counter. You don't want to be shelling up, covering up on feints, you know, because that's kind of passive. And that's what you get with Martin Buday. Now, DC once told us that Martin Buday used to play video games 12 hours a day. And I kind of feel like that would be the style of somebody that plays video games 12 hours a day. Because when you look at Martin Buday, you know, it's just hold you against the fence. It's push you against the fence, hold you there, and kind of bore you. Right? And also, guys, the cardio of Martin Buday is not great. Defensively, he's shelling up for the opponents even throwing their punches. Offensively, from a striking perspective, he's not great. You know, his style is to push you against the fence. You know, bore the opponent, bore the UFC, bore myself, bore everyone that's watching this fight. That's the style of Martin Buday. And if his video gameplay was anything similar to his fighting style, I can see why he gave it up. I can see why. Because who's going to watch that? It's boring. No one's going to watch that. So yeah, guys, Andrei Arlovski, the chin's dust. We know that. But if he stays on the bike, which he normally does, he stays moving, he circles the octagon. If he doesn't get pushed against the fence, held against the fence by Martin Buday, then Andrei Arlovski might win. Give me the dinosaur. Give me the big underdog. I haven't bet Arlovski. That is going to be the prediction, but I might do it. Plus 250 against Martin Buday. I might do it. Now, moving into a matchup between Michelle Waterson taking on Gillian Robertson. Guys, in my opinion, Michelle Waterson should retire. She hasn't won a fight since 2020. It's mid-2024, by the way. She's not won a fight since 2020. She's nearly 40 years old, you know, so it's not looking good for Michelle Waterson. Also, guys, look at the way Marina Rodriguez absolutely dusted Michelle Waterson in that last fight. The way she hit her with the knees, the elbows, you know, it's a Muay Thai masterclass for Marina Rodriguez. And I'm kind of surprised that Michelle Waterson even wants to fight again. You know, when you get beaten like that towards the back end of your career, that's where the question marks start popping off, right? Do I want to be here? Do I want to fight anymore? Can I be a champion? You know, have I got enough money to retire? That should be the questions that Michelle Waterson's looking to answer, right? Because she's old. She hasn't won a fight since 2020. And against someone like Gillian Robertson, it's going to be tough to beat this girl. It's going to be tough, right? Now, guys, don't get me wrong. The kicks of Michelle Waterson, they're pretty good. The axe kick, the side kick, you know, her karate kicks, they're very, very decent. However, if you don't give her that 5 feet, that 6 feet of space at all times, if you don't give her that space, then she's not going to throw those kicks. She's not going to look good, right? You take away that space because that's what Michelle Waterson wants. She wants that space to kick. So I kind of think, you know, Michelle Waterson, very old, hasn't won a fight since 2020. And you're seeing that her game is just, you know, give me space at all times. Now, Gillian Robertson isn't great on the feet. She's never been a good striker, right? But what Gillian does is she does what she's good at. You know, that's what she does. She'll walk forward, not to pressure the opponent into striking. She doesn't want to do that. She'll press forward to get the opponent to the mat. And once she gets the opponent to the mat, that's where you see the game of Gillian Robertson really show, right? Her grappling is just so good. So guys, can Gillian Robertson throw the kicks like Michelle Waterson? The answer is no. Does Gillian Robertson need to throw the kicks like Michelle Waterson? The answer is no. She has a black belt, and once she gets Michelle Waterson to the mat, she makes the fight more about jiu-jitsu. Now, it's not a jiu-jitsu match. It's a mixed martial arts match, right? But once the opponent hits the mat, once Gillian brings you to the mat, then she brings you to the ocean. She brings you to her world, the jiu-jitsu, the grappling. And she's essentially going to ask you, look, I can swim here. I'm the shark here. You're going to come to my waters. Can you swim? We're going to find out. And if you can't swim, then it ends with Gillian taking your back, taking your neck, and game over. That's how it normally ends, right? Macy Barber was really good at stopping Gillian, getting her to the mat. You know, Macy Barber, super strong. The physicality of Macy Barber. She's a bully, right? But Michelle Waterson, as we can see, she's quite small. She's not very strong. She wants the opponent to be away from her, right? She wants that space, 5 foot of space, 6 foot of space at all times. And Gillian is going to hunt her down. And once she hunts her down, she brings her to the ocean. That's potentially where it's a wrap. So give me the savage. Now moving into a matchup between Payton Talbott taking on Yanis Ghemouri. And guys, if you're someone like me who watches every single UFC fight, week in, week out, you're going to watch every single fight, right? If you're someone like me who does that, and I'm assuming most of you guys are, right? If you listen to my breakdowns, you love UFC. If you're someone like me who does that, you just know it when you see it, right? You just know when you see it. And Payton Talbott is it. This guy is it. You just know it. You just see it, right? Payton Talbott is the new era. This guy's it. This guy's it. He's like Sean O'Malley with a Nate Diaz chin. Just think about that. Actually, don't even think about that. You can watch that. You're going to watch that this weekend. This guy's striking. It's very powerful. Very effective. Super damaging, right? Big power in the hands. And also, his chin is made of granite. So if you hit Payton Talbott with your best strike, your best shot, he'll just kind of laugh. He'll kind of look at that like, good shot. That's a nice shot. Now it's my turn. And when Payton Talbott lands, that's where you see his turn be more effective, right? We're going to see that against Yanis Ghemouri. Yanis Ghemouri is going to try to do everything he can to win this matchup. But Payton Talbott, you just know it when you see it. This guy is it. And yes, the glazing is diabolical, but guys, it's the truth. This guy is it. Payton Talbott with a round 1 stoppage. Now guys, moving into a matchup between Charles Jourdain taking on Gene Silva. And you know what? I'm actually going to recap all of Charles Jourdain's UFC fights. Because guys, if you said to me, look, what do you make of Charles Jourdain? What do you make of this guy? There's been a bunch of fights. He's had like over 10 fights, right? What do you make of Charles Jourdain? If I gave you guys that question, you know, how do you answer that? Now, the best way to answer that question would be to watch his fights. And I have watched every single one of Charles Jourdain's UFC fights. So I'm going to actually recap them. Now, in his UFC debut, he went up to 155. So that was a short notice fight. And also at 155. So that was against Des Green back in 2019. Then against Doo Ho Choi, he was a massive underdog. And he lands a beautiful left cross. And he shuts out the lights of Doo Ho Choi. Then he had a close fight with Andrei Fili. And Andrei Fili has a lot of experience. Then against Josh Kulabau, that's a draw. Then he absolutely butchered Marcelo Rojo. Then against Julian Erosa, he was doing well. But Julian Erosa, he finds those late chokes. Then against Andre Ewell, Charles Jourdain looked very good, you know, dominated that fight. Even ended that fight with a beautiful teep kick. It was kind of like the Sparta moment, you know, this is Sparta, and he just kicks him to the midsection. It was beautiful. Then against Lando Venata, he choked the pants off Lando Venata, so that was good. Then against Shane Burgos, guys, arguably Charles Jourdain won that fight. Then against Nathaniel Wood, he was a favourite against Nathaniel Wood, which I really disagreed with. You know, Nathaniel Wood, so well-rounded, and he showed that. You know, he wrestled with Charles Jourdain, got him to the mat, and Charles Jourdain, he lost that fight. Then against Kron Gracie, you know, one job, stay away from jiu-jitsu, which he did do. And he also showed in that fight, look, I'm not going to kick. Charles Jourdain likes to kick. He's a good kickboxer. But against Kron Gracie, no need to kick. You're not going to grab a kick, get me to the mat. Then against Ricardo Ramos, that's a good win. Guillotine choke. Then most recently against Sean Woodson, this performance, not too great. You know, Sean Woodson just boxed him up. Charles Jourdain tried to get him to the mat, couldn't get him to the mat. Sean Woodson's like a broomstick. You know, got that broomstick takedown defense, which is the opposite newborn baby giraffe takedown defense, right? So guys, to answer the question, what do I make of Charles Jourdain? What do you make of Charles Jourdain? 6 wins, 6 losses. He's okay. In my opinion, he's okay. Now, Gene Silva, he's not as proven as Charles Jourdain. He doesn't have the same experience as Charles Jourdain. But what Gene Silva does have is big knockout power. This guy holds big power in the 4-ounce glove, right? And guys, it's fair to say that Gene Silva was prepared to fight a very technical striker in William Gomez. William Gomez is like Cyril Gane. You know, very light, very technical. Charles Jourdain's good, but he's not on the same level as William Gomez. But still, it's a very good matchup for Gene Silva. A good test, right? A very good test, because Charles Jourdain, like I just recapped his whole UFC career, the guy's good. He's very good. Guys, I'm going to side with Charles Jourdain. I just think the experience, and I think he's good. Now, guys, moving into a matchup between Cub Swanson taking on Andrei Fili. And if we was to recap the whole of Cub Swanson's UFC career, we'd be here for a while, because this is going to be his 24th UFC fight. He's 40 years old. So that's something to consider if you're going to bet money on Cub Swanson. And in my opinion, I don't think you should. Yes, Cub Swanson has a lot of experience. Yes, he's a good boxer. And yes, he's won recently. You know, you're looking at his wins against Hakeem Dawodu, against Darren Elkins, against Daniel Pineda, against Kron Gracie. These are all good wins, but Daniel Pineda, the cardio is a bit dusty. Kron Gracie, one-trick pony. Darren Elkins, you know, blind man's defense. And Hakeem Dawodu, that's a good win. In my opinion, Andrei Fili should win against Cub Swanson. He should box him up. He should be a little bit too fast for the old-timer, the veteran Cub Swanson. And also the kicks, right? When you kick against Cub Swanson, we can see that he really hates kicks. You're seeing with Chikadze, you know, beautiful kicks. You're seeing with Martinez, Jonathan Martinez, Dragon Martinez, the kicks, again, against Cub Swanson. They're just so effective. Now, Andrei Fili, he isn't primarily a kicker, and he's not primarily a boxer. He's both. He can do both. And he's very fast, right? He moves his feet. But the problem with Andrei Fili is defensively. Sometimes he just runs himself right into the punch. He'll just walk himself into the punch. Defensively, he doesn't really see the punches coming his way, which is kind of a problem. But against someone like Cub Swanson, someone who's not as fast, I don't think it should be a problem. So guys, the prediction for me is going to be Andrei Fili. He almost reminds me of a Charles Jourdain, where it's like, what do you make of Andrei Fili? There's so much tape. There's so much experience that Andrei Fili has. What do you make of Andrei Fili? I think he's okay. He's not perfect, right? But I think he's okay. I think he's good enough to be an old Cub Swanson. So my prediction is going to be Andrei Fili. Now moving into a very interesting matchup. Very, very interesting. We've got Joe Pyfer taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. And this one is very interesting, right? Because when you look at Joe Pyfer in his most recent fight, that's the first time he's lost in the UFC. And as I mentioned last week with Pavlovich, it's always interesting to see how a fighter responds to their first loss. Now, luckily for Joe Pyfer, it wasn't like a knockout loss. It wasn't one of those. It was a fight where, you know, over 5 rounds, he just didn't have it against Jack Hermansson. For the first 10 minutes, he did, right? For the first 10 minutes, he looked very good. We know Joe Pyfer has a lot of potential. He has a lot of potential. The left hand, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, it's all good work for Joe Pyfer. But unfortunately, in his last matchup, it wasn't good enough, right? 25 minutes, he didn't have the goods later on in the fight. Now, guys, against someone like Marc-Andre Barriault, what you do know is you're going to find your best shots, right? Because Marc-Andre, defensively, he's not great. And he knows that too, right? That's his style. Marc-Andre's going to march forward. He's going to leave himself on the centre line. And when you leave yourself on the centre line, you're going to get hit, right? And Marc-Andre does get hit. But what Marc-Andre wants to do is to essentially break you down as the fight progresses. And that's interesting because as we saw with Joe Pyfer against Jack Hermansson, that's what happened. Right? Jack Hermansson broke him down as the fight progresses. So it's 15 minutes, not 25 minutes. But still, when you look at Joe Pyfer against Jack Hermansson, you're seeing that the third round, that's where he starts to get tired. So if Marc-Andre can win a round before the final round and win that final round, then there's potential for Marc-Andre to win the fight. And Marc-Andre, like I said, defensively, he's just not good. So Joe Pyfer's going to find the mark. His left hand is going to find the mark. But can he keep his cardio in check? Can he use his energy at the right times? Because that's something about the game, you know. You have to pick your openings, you know, and that's something that Joe really does. He doesn't just go out there and start swinging bombs. He really picks his shots. So give me Joe Pyfer to win the matchup. Give me Joe Pyfer to get back to winning ways after a learning lesson against Jack Hermansson. As always, my homies, if you wait to smoke with me, amen. You've been smoking this whole time, double amen. If you're not a smoker but you enjoy the smoke breaks, that's always been a triple amen, gang. Let's go. Now, guys, 2 smoke break questions that I got on the last card. And the first question's from Andy Mush. And Andy says, how did you stay motivated when you started the channel? Now, Andy, in my opinion, it's so much easier to keep the motivation when you first start. You know, think about how many things you started. There's so many things you must have started in your life, and the same with everyone, right? It's so easy to find the motivation when you first start. The problem is, you know, staying the course. That's the problem. The problem is the motivation's there at the start, but as the motivation fades, that's where, you know, things get difficult. That's where people quit what they start, right? So many people start jiu-jitsu, they get past white belt, and then they're gone, right? So really, to answer the question, the motivation is there. It's there at the start, right? But as the motivation fades, as you get past the initial stages of what you first start, that's where the problem is. Because if you're not doing what you love, then, you know, eventually you're going to quit. Any sane person would, right? That's how it goes. But yeah, good question. I like that. And my second question's from JC Stone. He says, do you bet on other sports? If so, what's your wheelhouse sport? So to answer the question for JC, my number one sport is UFC, but I do bet on other sports. I do. I'm not so great at NBA, you know, basketball. I'm not so great. I've got a love-hate situation with that sport, but I kind of bet on that here and there. And I also bet on boxing. I'm pretty good at boxing. Got Usyk recently against Fury. Got a big underdog win on Garcia. And also football. I'm betting on the Euros here and there, right? And in my opinion, the winner of the Euros, either Germany or England, one of those. Alright guys, let's go. Now guys, moving into a phenomenal matchup. This is insane. We've got Ian Machado Garry taking on Michael Venom Page. Guys, I don't even need to break this down. You already know this matchup right here, the start of the main card. Ian Machado Garry versus MVP. This is it. This is a phenomenal matchup. Now guys, I'll be honest. I'll tell you something you already know. I'm a gambler. I put money on these fights, right? Not every fight. Obviously don't do that. But guys, I bet on these fights week in, week out. Now Ian Machado Garry, this guy, he's gone to the octagon 7 times, and 7 times I've made money. That's my history on betting Ian Machado Garry. Now, I understand a lot of people dislike Ian Garry. I understand that, right? But when it comes to gambling, I don't really care about who's liked and who's disliked. I don't care about that. Now guys, the reason why this matchup is so good, you look at both these guys in the striking, they're just so good on the feet. You look at the way Ian Machado Garry manages that range, and you see the same thing with Michael Venom Page. But Michael Venom Page, he's kinda surprising. He'll surprise you, right? He'll just pop you with a shot you don't see, right? And even the fans who are watching, you don't see it. That's what's so crazy with Michael Venom Page. You don't see what he's about to throw, but then you see him do it, and you're like, okay, this guy's shocking, this guy's quick, and this guy's got a very unique style. That's Michael Venom Page. But Ian Machado Garry, this guy's also very good at managing the range, just like Michael Venom Page. But guys, in my opinion, the fight's won and lost based on this. It's who can control that range, right? Who can control the space, but also when that space is gone, When that space is taken away, who can be more effective when there's no space? Who can be more effective in the pocket, right? Once that space is gone, who's going to be more effective? Because both of them like to fight when there's space between them and their opponent. They want to control that space. But at times in this fight, Machado Garry is going to decide, I'm going to take away that space. I'm going to close the distance, get into the pocket, start to really box with MVP up close. And there's also going to be times where MVP decides, now's the time to step into that space. Now's the time to attack my opponent, to shock my opponent. Both of them are going to be playing a very high level striking chess match. And in my opinion, give me Machado Garry. Now moving into a matchup between Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Chiasson, one of my favourite fighters because this girl is female MGK. This is female MGK. And Chiasson, she's good. She's okay. You know, on the feet, she'll stay nice and long, use the teep kicks, use her length. She's like 6 foot. You know, she's a big girl. You know what I'm saying? This is female MGK. And also on the mat, you know, she can grapple. She's not like Damian Maya, but she knows what she's doing on the mat. You know, she bullied Pani Kianzad in the grappling twice, right? And if Leon Edwards was in the corner of Pani Kianzad, you know what he would have said. You know, don't let her bully your son. But yeah, she got bullied. She got bullied on the mat. So Chiasson, she can grapple, she can strike. She's not the best, but female MGK, she's okay. Now, Mayra Bueno Silva, this girl's coming off a title loss to Rocky Pennington. And what we got to see in that fight was something that we've seen more than once in the game of Mayra Bueno Silva. And that's her cardio. Her cardio is just not good, right? Don't get me wrong, her jiu-jitsu, her ability to take the arm of the opponent, she's really good on the mat. Her jiu-jitsu is very good. But the cardio is just so dusty. And against someone like Chiasson, someone that, you know, potentially would make the grappling exchanges pretty difficult because she's so big. She's like 6 foot. Against someone like that, if you slow down against Chiasson, she's going to take the win. You know what I'm saying? And in my opinion, give me the underdog. Give me female MGK. I take Chiasson like pretty much every time. Unless it's against Irene Aldana, because Irene Aldana is just a Mexican savage. But yeah, give me the underdog, Chiasson, and I might bet it. Now guys, moving into a very interesting matchup. We've got Anthony Smith taking on Roman Dolidze. Very interesting matchup. And something that's so interesting with this matchup, in my opinion, is both these guys have excellent jiu-jitsu. You're seeing with Anthony Smith, you know, he's a black belt. He's a veteran. He's very, very good on the mat. You see that recently against Vitor Petrino. Petrino tries to get him to the mat. I'm not sure why, but he tried to get him to the mat. And as he's trying to do that, Anthony Smith, who's been around for a long time, he's a black belt. He understands all the transitions, all the grappling positions. As he's trying to get him to the mat, Anthony Smith just says, you know, checkmate, game done. But guys, Roman Dolidze also understands all the grappling positions. He's also a black belt on the mat. So both these guys have very, very good grappling. But who's going to be more effective with their grappling? Could it be a case where Roman Dolidze initially looks like the better grappler, but because he's so heavily muscled, because he's got so much muscle on the frame, those guys get tired. And as he gets tired, someone like Anthony Smith, someone who's unwilling to die, someone that just stays in the fight, even if they're getting beat up, they just stay in the fight. And because he's going to stay in the fight, if Roman Dolidze gets tired, then you're seeing Anthony Smith start to work his magic, start to show his jiu-jitsu, potentially take the back of Roman Dolidze. And if Roman Dolidze's tired, you know, the veteran experience of Anthony Smith, it could be enough to get the fight done. You know, he could be losing the fight, but Anthony Smith will stay in the fight when he probably shouldn't even be in the fight in the first place, right? He's been around for a long time. He's quite old. Retirement should be on the mind of Anthony Smith. But the guy's a dog. He's a dog. He just wants to keep fighting. You know, he's like that old dog, right? That just won't go away. That's Anthony Smith. Now, guys, if the matchup stays on the feet, who's going to be in control of that matchup, right? Both these guys are very good grapplers. They understand what to do on the mat. But if the matchup doesn't go to the mat, who's in control on the feet? Now, guys, Anthony Smith, like we said, he's a veteran. He understands what to do, but defensively, the speed's gone. The reactions are gone. On the feet, he's a shell. But the shell, it's going to remain in the fight. So this one just comes down to, can Roman Dolidze, you know, continue to beat up Anthony Smith? Or is he going to get tired? If you get tired against Anthony Smith, the old dog is going to show you exactly what he's been waiting around for, right? He's going to seize the opportunity. He's going to find a submission. He'll find something. But in my opinion, Roman Dolidze probably continues to beat up Anthony Smith. So the prediction for me is going to be Roman Dolidze to win the matchup, to beat the veteran, the old-timer, the dog, the Lionheart, Anthony Smith. The prediction's Roman Dolidze. Guys, moving into the co-main event, we've got Brian Ortega taking on Diego Lopes. Oh my goodness, the co-main event, this is fire. This is it. Guys, Brian Ortega, this guy's tough. He's super tough, and his jiu-jitsu, his ability to bring the opponent to the mat, not only to bring the opponent to the mat, but to submit the opponent, to dust up the opponent, to wrap the opponent up like a blunt. Brian Ortega will do that, and I predicted he would do that against Yair Rodriguez. And for the whole time against Yair Rodriguez, he was getting dusted. He was getting lit up. But the moment he gets Yair Rodriguez to the mat, you know, it's a wrap. It's done. But guys, here's the thing. If Diego Lopes finds himself on the mat with Brian Ortega, he's not a fish out of water like Yair Rodriguez. Diego Lopes also has slick jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu's high level, just like Brian Ortega. So there's no mismatch on the mat. Now you may say, well, Brian Ortega, he should still have the better jiu-jitsu. Or you may say, well, Diego Lopes at the moment is shown to have better jiu-jitsu in mixed martial arts. But either way, they're both black belts. They both understand what to do on the mat. So guys, what's going to happen if Diego Lopes doesn't choose to grapple with Brian Ortega, and Brian Ortega also chooses the same game plan, right? I'm not going to try to grapple with Diego Lopes. What happens if the matchup stays on the feet? In that situation, guys, historically, Brian Ortega is shown to be defensively bad on the feet. You're seeing that against Max Holloway. You're seeing that against Yair Rodriguez. You're seeing that against Volkanovski. Now, you might say, well, all of those guys are better than Diego Lopes on the feet. And I would agree, right? I would agree with that. But guys, when Diego Lopes lets that right hand fly, it's a weapon. It's a missile. You know, what Diego Lopes done to Sadiq Youssef, what he done to Sabatini, and also Gavin Tucker, it's all good work. But against someone like Brian Ortega, someone that's so tough, so durable, you can't really expect to get the fight done and dusted in round one, like you did against Youssef, like you did against Sabatini. You can't expect that against Ortega because the guy's so tough. He's not going to fold, right? Can Diego Lopes win the matchup when the opponent doesn't fold? We're going to find out. Give me the Brazilian. Give me Diego Lopes. Moving into the main event, the rematch between Alex Pereira taking on Yuri Prochazka. And guys, we've got a fire main event. It's a fire rematch. Now, guys, in the first matchup, I did predict and I also bet on Alex Pereira. And it's the same story. The left hook. The left hook lands. Fight done. Fight dusted. But guys, before Alex Pereira lands that left hook, before he lands it, there's moments. There's many moments for Giri, right? He's finding the mark, making Pereira back up. He even took Pereira to the mat, which, you know, that's a good game plan. That's a really good game plan against Pereira. And don't get me wrong, I think, you know, Alex Pereira has passed the test for the most part when it comes to wrestling, when it comes to grappling. You see that against Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz got him to the mat, but Pereira gets back to the feet. And getting back to the feet, it's a part of the game. You get taken to the mat, you have to get back to the feet. That's part of the game. And he also done that against Giri, right? Giri gets him to the mat. He finds his way back to the feet, finds his way back to the left hook. And the left hook, it's a fight ender. And guys, I'm sure most of you would agree that the left hook of Alex Pereira is the most violent in the whole of mixed martial arts. The left hook. So guys, really, if you're Yuri Prochazka and you want the title back, you want to win the rematch, then don't get hit with the left hook. That's the case for any opponent of Alex Pereira. Don't get hit with the left hook, the lead hook. Stay away from absorbing that weapon, because if you absorb that weapon, you wake up. It's not a case of, you know, you take that lead hook and you stay in the fight. That doesn't happen with Pereira. The moment he lands the left hook, fight done. But guys, in this matchup, someone's going to sleep. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Yuri Prochazka? Is he going to go to sleep again? Or is it going to be Alex Pereira? Is it his turn? And before anyone goes to the comments and they're like, Yuri didn't go to sleep. He wasn't asleep against Pereira. He was on his way, right? He was badly hurt. And that's because the lead hook. The lead hook lands, and that's the start to the end, right? That's how it all ends against Pereira. We've seen that many times. Do we see it again? That's the question. Who's going to get dusted? Who goes to sleep? Gun to the head. Give me who I took in the first fight. Give me Pereira. As always, my homies, drop down your main event, your co-main event, your Money City bets, all that good stuff. Drop in the comment section below. And as always, keep your eyes to the sky and never glued to your shoes. Peace.